gonna shift to sort of like the worker perspective now. So like people who are out looking for jobs, we're looking at employers looking for workers. Now I want to be an employee going out searching for a job, something that matches my skill set, something that's interesting. So like what kind of things do we know that people tend to value in their job? Is it just the money? I mean, always the salary is posted and that's like a big incentive, but there's probably a lot of other things, right, that we care about in our job.
Yeah, there's a classic job characteristics model. I've summarized the literature on life satisfaction. So we kind of know what those characteristics are. Again, this isn't to say for you or for me, but in general, people really like meaning in their job, right? They like feeling like their task has significance. They like feeling like they have autonomy, right? Agency. So empowering people is something that's going to be really important. What else do people love? Feedback. They don't want negative feedback, that's for sure, but coaxing and kind of getting people. I think I read somewhere that an airplane is only exactly on target of the line from A to B, like 2% of the time. They're always kind of a little bit left, a little bit to the right, and kind of shifting back and forth. That's the kind of feedback people love. They don't necessarily always want to just be getting positive feedback, but how can I improve? Are you actually watching what I'm doing enough to know how to help make me better? So I think we're going to see that. I think that's always been true, and I think we're going to see it more and more because I think the younger generation is used to these things and they're going to demand it really.
Okay, I want to talk about sort of dive into each one of those a little bit of the characteristics that I found here. So autonomy is important to a lot of people, just to feel like they're in control of something, right? They don't want to be just, at the end of the whip. So how do you get that basically in your job? What kind of jobs do that? And I suspect that a lot of people have the idea that as they get promoted, as they become more managerial, that they'll gain more autonomy, but I don't
It's
think that's
not
the
true. It's
case.
the opposite, right? The only way to be free of people is not to manage people. So managing them actually makes them very interconnected to you in all sorts of ways that you cannot disentangle versus being an individual contributor. I'll say it from the flip side. I guess as a manager, and when I'm hiring people, managing people, and also when I'm talking to organizations about how to do it right, it's pretty simple formula, but it's very hard to execute. I try and hire people, I call it grown-ups. I try and hire grown-ups
Mhm.
and I try and, train them up so they know what I'm expecting of them, what I need them to do, and then get out of their way. So I'm looking to empower and support them, and every once in a while I'll need to go in and say, okay, we're all going to add this assignment, or we're all going to, have to come together to work on this deliverable. But in general, because they've had so much autonomy, I don't get resistance to those things. And I'm explaining why it's an issue. So I think that there's some of that. It's also what you put back out in the world, right? So as individuals, if you really want to have a lot of autonomy, then treating your coworkers with a lot of autonomy and treating them with respect is going to go a long way too, because it's a culture, right? So to the degree that you micromanage people, they are going to think that that's what good managers do. I must micromanage you as well. So I don't have the silver
Mhm.
bullet, but I do think it's kind of an approach. It's much easier, right, to not micromanage.
So I found the stat, it probably varies from place to place, but 88% of people prioritize their career development as something they look for in their job. So they don't like the feeling of just being stuck doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know if it's 88%, but it's all a push, right? Everybody cares about salary until you have enough salary. And then it starts to
Okay.
be, what would I push here? What would I give to be remote? What would I give to, but development is huge. So I think that, it's kind of like the feedback in a way, right? You're looking to develop new skills, new areas, growth potential. I think people don't want to stagnate. I think there was a little bit of an existential reevaluation that happened during COVID. It's like if we all might not be here, 2 years from now, how would I feel if this is what I had done with my life? And so people wanted to do more. And if you don't feel like you have that meaning, it's hard to get excited about going to work every day.
Yeah, yeah. And then how? easy, or how often do people find it that they can capitalize on new skills that they learn? Like how often do people advance? You know, you think of like a sort of a pyramid shape at most companies, right? If you want to do something that requires more skills, well, there's only a fewer and fewer people who can do it. So like if everyone's learning new jobs, new skills, do you actually get to capitalize on that, or is that kind of just a, just a rare thing?
It really depends on where you are. I mean, there's some organizations where you can't really be promoted until you're basically doing that job.
Okay.
So that's the way you get promoted. It's a political process by definition, right? More people want it than can have it. People often will kind of job hop to go somewhere else so that they can get that experience, get that additional pay, get that additional promotion. And so there are a lot of ways people can do it, but yeah, I would say that is kind of the one of the big problems with all of it, right? We have a big bottom and very small top, and those are disproportionate rewards as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I was wondering what you think about using promotion as an incentive for people to work. Does that make sense, or?
I mean, it is a thing and it's a real thing, but I think it's a recipe for unhappiness if that's the only reason you're going to work, right?
Okay.
So I think, kind of holding out for someday when and then everything will be great is not a good strategy, kind of no matter what you're thinking about or holding out for. I think it's kind of finding, I don't know, it sounds very Pollyanna-ish, but finding the joy in every day. But those moments of joy, the research on life satisfaction is just so clear. It being satisfied has nothing to do with how much you make after you make enough to be, have a living, safe living space where you're secure, which is really critical. But after that, it's about your approach, your outlook on life. It's about noticing, smelling the roses, reading a book, smiling when people walk by. Those are the kinds of things that make your life qualitatively different than somebody who doesn't have those. So you can be married and be really happy, have kids and be really happy, but you can also be married and have kids and be really unhappy. And so that's not the thing that predicts. What predicts is how you are in that marriage and as a parent, and your other relationships. So I don't know if it's a happy. I think it's happy because I kind of think that knowing that it's within your sphere of influence to impact that, it's kind of all in your head, how you look at things. That to me is kind of powerful. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't incredibly horrible things that happen, and really toxic, unhealthy situations that people should just get out of. It doesn't mean you should put up with those at all. So I'm kind of assuming none of that is happening. And then once you have a stable environment, how are you looking at things? But clearly you should not be smelling the roses if somebody's being abusive to you at work, or you're being discriminated against, or harassed, those sorts of things. But I think for a lot of people, it is just about their approach once those things are kind of taken care of.
Okay. That's sort of a personal perspective, but then there's like a general culture around it, right? And I definitely see in so many places that there's like this feeling of just like a rat race where you're just competing and you're just trying to take whatever you can get for yourself, right? And that
Yeah.
seems like a really toxic thing. I don't know if that's changed, the culture has changed, or if it's always been like that, but I think a lot of people are feeling that now, and they're just trying to get in and get out like as fast as they can, just try and get whatever they can.
Yeah. No, that is very unhealthy and not sustainable, right? I mean, for people's
Definitely
well-being,
sustainable.
that's just not a recipe for health at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering, do you recommend people job hopping? Because I saw that people who tend to change jobs more frequently tend to get higher salaries. I don't know, maybe they can find the job that fits better, or maybe it's just some sort of like external validation.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably not asking the right person, because I have not job hopped in 30 years, and I could have, and I've had opportunities and considered it, but kind of like the stability and pretty happy with the job characteristics of my job. But, the average Bureau of Labor Statistics says, the average person, the average job is 4.1 years. So job hoppers are actually moving faster than that. Some people are moving all the time. Some people are staying 30 years. And that average ends up being 4.1 per job. But even in academia, the way that you make more money is you publish a lot and you move. And if money is the driver, then that's what people do. And if you're a sole breadwinner, and you can live in the place that has the lowest cost of living and try and maximize your salary, those are definite strategies that people employ, and that can make sense. you're saying like the rat race, right? That's kind of a way around it. If everybody's going to North Dakota and there's a lot of job opportunities in North Dakota, but the cost of living is low, that's when you see a lot of people moving to North Dakota. But you've got to be willing to shift and move, relocate often, unless you're going to do that remotely. And so those are some of the trade-offs. People become quite embedded in their communities, right? And so that social fabric, I like walking in the neighborhood and seeing my neighbors and seeing the same people who walk their dogs at the same time. And I kind of like those sorts of things. Again, to kind of just the happiness of my day around the work. And so those things matter to me, but I probably could be in another neighborhood and say hi to other people, right? And be happy. It's just about trade-offs, I think, personally. But clearly they're, like if you're a person starting off or looking to start over, there are parts of the country that you can buy a much bigger house for less money than where I'm located in Oregon, or anywhere on the West Coast, really, or East Coast for that matter, right? So, Detroit is having a renaissance. So, there's an opportunity there. So it really depends on how much you're willing to be mobile and unembed yourself from where you are to take advantage of some of those things.
There's something to be gained, but there's a cost to moving around so much, a personal cost. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.